Well, it's literature, but more so specifically, as you like to call it, Cliterature.
This was recommended in the Facebook group. It's called Pucking Around.
And it's got 2 hockey sticks on the front. Great
Yeah.
if you love a pun.
It's about hockey, right? Which is hot. Anyway.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
And I'm Keisha, and I'm still here. Sorry to all of you who were really looking forward to Brit being finished with I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and being back on the podcast. You're stuck with me for another week.
Brit's on safari. She's having some time off. She's having some R&R after what seems like a truly hectic ordeal.
I mean, she was in the jungle for a month, and if you don't know how the show works, like towards the end, they fly a loved one over so that they can be there for the finale. But because it kind of all plays out so quickly off the back of the eliminations, her mum was flown over to South Africa. So they're spending the week going on game drives together.
Which you would be pretty pissed if you flew all the way over there, your kid got kicked out, and then you just had to fly straight home.
Yeah.
What a waste.
It's a pretty long journey to South Africa.
So it takes 24 hours.
I think there are some flights that go like relatively direct, but the one I took went up to Abu Dhabi and then down to South Africa. It was a really long journey.
What did you do when you were in Africa, Keish? Let's just play that audio again for anyone who missed it.
I went bungee jumping. Okay, it was a great experience.
Anyway, we've got one more week. So Brit is not going to come back until next weekend, which means she'll be back on the podcast next week. Producer Keisha, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say you have done a fucking fantastic job.
Thank you.
Well done.
I've had so much.
The crowd goes wild.
They probably don't. They're probably like, oh my days.
They're like, wait, so one more episode?
I've actually had so much fun recording with you over the past month. So I'm glad I get to do it for another week. But something that you mentioned last week that I have been really actually interested in, I'm deeply invested in how raspberry is going in your house. What I'm not deeply invested in is that we brought it up on the podcast last week. And I potentially made the mistake of saying, hey guys, if you've got a cat and you don't think your cat's pee smells, you're wrong and you need your friends to tell you, because we have been inundated with messages and one of them was pretty full on.
There's been a couple of people who are deeply offended by that. Like Keisha did say that if you have a cat, then 99.9% of the time your house smells like cat piss. And if you think it doesn't, it's probably because it does. And some of you guys were really offended, and I understand that because I'm a cat person, so I know how that would have upset you, but also it probably does because my house stinks. It fucking stinks. Every day. You got to clean that kitty litter every day. I already got to wipe 2 asses a day. Now I got to clean kitty
3
litter.
if you include your own.
Yeah, I forgot about mine.
Just snap it off, don't you? On the go.
Actually, I have hemorrhoids. Nothing snaps off these days.
Oh,
Is that too much?
That's too much.
Sorry.
I would like to put it on the record, though. I'm not a cat person. Like, I like cats. I have nothing against them. I'm more of a dog person.
But you're not a
absolutely.
kitty litter person. That's the thing. Because the Life Uncut DMs have truly migrated over the past week. A week ago, every single one of you would send us reels about plants. Like the amount of times I have been sent propagation reels, or that one old woman who's like outside holding a tree in a storm, like that reel, I get sent it at least 15 times a day.
Yeah, but at least you're into the plant content. They send it to the Life Uncut Instagram, which it's my job to check the messages of. And I'm like, haha, so funny.
So now Keish only gets recommendations for kitty litter. One person sent me a recommendation for a kitty litter that we should purchase, like a kitty litter tray. I shit you not, it was $580. And I was like, guys, I don't know who you think I am, but currently she's shitting in a cardboard box, a recyclable kitty litter tray that I just have to like put into the recycling bin every 3 days. I'm not buying, I refuse to spend $500 on a cat toilet.
I'm trying to evaluate how much I detest the smell of cat piss, because if it works, it's a real gamble. It's a roll of the dice.
It's an investment.
You expect that if you're paying $580 for something to remove the smell of your cat piss, that it will. If it worked.
You would do it. Cost of living, babe.
Yeah, but I'd make sacrifices in other places. I think that would be my upper limit, but I think I would be like, this is an investment because it will bring me a lot more joy to not have to go through this.
I'd just like to point out that the kitty litter tray costs twice the amount of the cat. The cat costs half.
We were also sent quite a lot of content about how to train your cat to poo in the toilet.
Which I'm for. And I am going to keep you guys abreast of this situation. At the moment, I don't think she could get onto the toilet without falling in. But as she gets a bit bigger, I am going to have one of those households where the cat just boop just goes straight into the loo. And I know we talked about it on Thursday, but this is happening and I'm going to follow along. Hey guys, follow at Lady and a Cat to
Can you
follow
please
my adventures.
actually document this?
Yeah, I will.
it'll be
This is
really
all
enjoyable.
coming. But also, I think from like an update perspective, so Matt, he's not a cat person. He will outwardly and happily say he prefers dogs. He had no interest in getting a cat, but if I wanted one, it was fine. He was like, you do what you want to do, but I'm not taking care of it. I'm not going to pat it. I'm not going to feed it. He's like, it will just live alongside me, but I'm not going to show it any interest. Oh, how the tables have turned. Matt now is every night the cat sits on Matt's lap. We wake up in the morning and he's like, have you fed her yet? She seems like she needs more food. She's meowing. Like he is so invested in the cat, everything to do with the cat now. Even like I left the door slightly ajar because I went outside and I was putting the clothes on the line. So I was right in front of the door and he was like, Laura, you need to close the door. The cat could get away. Like, I thought you would have been thrilled.
I'm not shocked by this evolution, but I am surprised by the time it's taken.
1 week.
I thought it would be a bit longer. I thought it would kind of be a gradual wearing down process, but it seems to be happening. Is it because she is very cute?
It's happened faster than what he managed to take to our own children. It took him longer to adjust. Put it that way.
They're easier than children. Maybe
true.
that's why.
Yeah, but also it's kind of one of those things that's annoying because I have done everything. I'm like the enthusiastic cat person, but the cat chooses the one who's disinterested in him. Like that's the thing. The cat prefers Matt, who doesn't show as much interest as I do, but then I get rejected. Anyway, that's probably enough cat chat for
No,
today.
I think that's for all pets. I think when you play a little hard to get, Delilah does this with me, and I know she's manipulating me. This is Brit, for anyone who doesn't know, Brit's dog Delilah, I often look after, and I love it. She prefers my boyfriend because he's a bit like indifferent to it. Like he likes her, but he will also be like, get off the lounge and show a bit more authority.
She's like, yeah, treat me mean, daddy. I like it.
I think that animals like it, especially cats. This is how they got the ancient Egyptians to worship them. They played hard to get.
That kind of works in relationships as well, doesn't it? Anyway, Keish, there was something I wanted to talk to you about, and it's something that you have taken a real interest to recently. It has been showing up in the Facebook group. It's something that you have started your own little book club around, and that is, well, it's literature, but more so specifically, as you like to call it, Cliterature. Romance and sexy novels, which I didn't realize that they'd made such a comeback and that this is a thing, that this is like a genre of books that people are deeply into. But there's a whole subcategory for it on TikTok at the moment as well.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this is not a new thing. It's just a new thing for me. And I am a beginner to this. There is such a fierce culture behind smut book talk, and I'll get into that.
Smutty talk.
That I feel a little bit like, I feel as though me talking about it on a podcast is like the most beginner entry level, like not even toenail being dipped in. And there will be people who are experts in this field who are like, oh my God. So please don't message me telling me that everything that I'm saying is wrong. I'm new to this and I'm just having a lot of fun in it.
I'm sorry, but how can you be wrong when it comes to reading smutty literature? I don't understand how there's a right or wrong. I didn't know that there's such a deep subcategory or subculture of smuttiness out there.
Well, because even when I posted in the Facebook group about it being called Cliterature, I was told that that's not the most appropriate term. But I really like it. It's like an amalgamation of clit and
lit.
clitoris and literature.
What is the most appropriate term?
Well, it seems to be, and I don't know whether this is because of algorithms like censoring certain words, but it seems to be as though smut, so like hashtag smut and hashtag spicy book talk are the most used, or smut books.
Can I just say, if people are getting offended by the word Cliterature because they're saying it's not the most on trend, people need to stop being offended by things or go touch grass. Like we get offended by a lot and I'm okay with it, but I draw the line at smut talk.
I think there might be a little bit of again, don't know the best way to describe this. Essentially, authors who are prolific in this space and are very, very successful have been slightly diminished in the authoring world because of the type of content that they write. And
because they're writing pornos.
Well, kind of. And people are like, it's a bit patronizing to not recognize their success as great as we should because they are just as, so I do understand that there could be something a little bit more deep behind it. But I really like the word and I think it's fun to use.
So for someone who sits on the other end of the spectrum, like I love reading and when I have time to do so, I always get reminded by how much I enjoy it. But I don't have the time at the moment, and I certainly haven't invested into anything that smutty. And what I mean by that is like probably the smuttiest thing that I read at the time was 50 Shades of Grey, like the series, which I don't even think was that. I think it was pretty vanilla, really.
Well, I mean, I've never read it and I've also never seen the movies.
It's very vanilla.
I think that was like the world's introduction to that type of content. I think it existed long before it, but
Totally.
it became very popular at the time. And now on TikTok, over 4.8 billion people use the hashtags either smut books, or spicy book talk. So it's like this whole genre of erotic romance, and it's specifically centered around female pleasure. So the reason I actually initially kind of decided that I wanted to dip my toe in smut books is because I saw this post in the Life Uncut discussion group. And it was from a woman who was saying, she was a couple of months postpartum, and she was basically saying that her libido had gone to shit. And she was like, guys, I need your help. How do I get my sex drive back? And quite a few of the comments from people were saying, you need to get into these types of books because they will absolutely turn you on and your libido will be back. Just believe me. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting.
You're like, is this the secret sauce to the tingles?
Well, in my own life, like I've felt a little bit of a decrease in my sex drive. Could be hormonal, not sure what's going on there. But I was like, okay, I would like to get into this, but I'm not much of a reader. I feel like we read for work. Like we often read.
Totally. No, we're not reading for pleasure, quote unquote.
But I do get a lot of pleasure out of the books of the authors that we have on the podcast. But I've not really, it's not something that I do for myself, if that makes sense. And so I thought, okay, I need to get into reading. I need to do this before bed, blah, blah, blah. And I was talking about it with a group of my girlfriends at the beach. And we decided, like, I think like a lot of women do, that we were like, let's start a book club.
So wait, is your book club that you have, is it only smutty books or is it anything books? Because do you read like female pleasure porn and then all talk about it in a group chat?
No, but it's very new.
Okay.
So I am the connective tissue of this group, because what ended up happening is that I had a couple of friends that wanted to catch up on a Sunday. This is a couple of weeks ago. This would be like maybe 6 weeks ago. And I was like, let's go to the beach. And then I had more friends that wanted to catch up, and I was like, oh, we'll just come along. You know, it'll be a group hang and you can meet the other girls. And so I was kind of the patient zero of the book club group. And it was me who was like, oh, I need to get more into reading. And quite a few of those girls are already readers. So we decided to make a WhatsApp group and we called it Book Club. And because I was kind of the instigator of it, I was like, guys, I'll choose the first book, which is where I went wrong because I'm not the reader.
Well, producer Keisha brought the book that she recommended today, and it is sitting there next to her computer. Could you just hold it up for anyone who's watching on YouTube?
Well, this was recommended in the Facebook group, and this was the first book that was recommended. It's called Pucking Around. It's by Emily Rath.
And it's got 2 hockey sticks on the front. Great if you love a pun.
Pucking Around, it's about hockey, right? So ice hockey, which is hot. Anyway, I did not realize that this book was 700 pages.
Yeah, it's like Shantaram versus Pucking Around. They're kind of the same size. That's an ambitious read for a first one. But can you just like open up a page? I want to see the level of, read it to me in a dirty voice.
I feel as though as I read this to you, I want to make eye contact.
Read it slower.
I don't know if that's like going to make HR
Stop touching yourself.
get involved.
We don't have an HR. Just I know we refer to HR all the time, but Life Uncut doesn't actually physically have one, which is probably a problem.
That you know of.
But it doesn't exist.
We're self-regulated. Okay, here we go. I gladly fall to my elbows on the counter, a smile on my face as he buries his hand between my legs. His other hand massages my ass cheek, giving it a sharp slap that I feel straight through my clit. You're going to take me deep, he orders, pressing in with his hips, his cock wet with my release as
I hope you're not listening to this with children in the car. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah, we should have done a warning. My bad. Sorry.
Well, I mean, we did say we were going to read it. So if your kids are listening, that's your fault.
As he slides it in between my legs, please, I whimper. You want me to come inside you, don't you? He teases, softly nipping the lobe of my ear.
How frequently does this happen throughout the book? Like, is it like every 5 pages? Is it every chapter?
Well, I'm quite shamefully so little through it.
But you already reached this part.
No, I didn't actually.
You flicked ahead.
The funniest part is that to read that, I just flicked to a random page and like that's the level of horny. But my friends who have gotten their way through the entire 700 pages, like these are some of the messages that have come in my WhatsApp group. I would just screenshot them. Guys, this book is legit making me a horny teenager. Same, like it's such a light read, but there's so much sex. How did she randomly stumble into 3 guys this horny? So yes, my answer is it absolutely will get your juices flowing. I don't know whether you're going to think it's like a literature masterpiece. It's definitely not poetry. but I quite like that, you know, I'm going to compare it to something like Jane Austen. That's a heavy read. It's pretty hard. The language is very like delicate and it's very flowery. And I don't know what
there's nothing delicate about this. But I do think the thing about this that is interesting because we talk so much about like how do you get desire back in your relationship? How do you get your libido back? This is a completely no pressure way of going about it. And not only is it no pressure, but if you're in a relationship, your partner doesn't even need to know that that's the reason why you're reading it. Like they don't need to know what's in it. You could be sitting in bed reading a book and your partner would have no knowledge of what the contents is. So you could use it as like a bit of a self-experiment and it would be very little pressure to do so.
Yeah, there's something that feels quite classy about it with. But particularly hilarious, one of my girlfriends put a message in the group chat. This is what it said. And it's funny you mentioned that the person next to you won't know that that's what you're doing. She wrote, I'm currently on a plane. I pulled out the book and a lady walked past me to go to the bathroom. And in front of everyone, she went, you're bold. That one's filthy. So this stranger
You're like, it
into the
takes
toilet-
one to know one. You've clearly read it.
Exactly.
You've clearly read it.
Exactly.
Would you read this in public or would you only save this for night times?
I think I feel the pressure right now to read it in public because I'm so far behind for book club that I'm feeling the pressure that I need to catch up. Like we're having book club tomorrow night and I've only gotten through like not even a quarter of it.
And do you read this and then want to have sex with your partner?
It definitely increases the arousal, yeah. But usually in my situation, I probably need to change the timing of my reading because he's asleep by the time.
You're like, hello, wakey, wakey.
And he's like, fuck off, I gotta get up early for work.
Look, if you have any recommendations, if you've read a smutty book and you were like, that one really got the fanny tingles going, put it into the Facebook group because then we'll start a thread in there. I think for anybody who is wanting to get their libido back, who is wanting to take matters into their own hands and would try anything but also doesn't want the pressure of having to try everything, this could be a really great place to start. So like put it in there. I know that it exists on TikTok and everything else and you can find them yourselves, but if you've read it and you've done the research, share it. Don't gatekeep that stuff. Share it with the rest of us.
Well, what I thought was really lovely is that when I asked for recommendations, there were so many. So I love that there are women who are like, oh, this one was great for me. There's also a lot of different types. Like there's fantasy based, and I don't mean fantasy in how we would talk about sexual fantasy. That also exists. Like there's one for all different kinks.
You mean they're on the moon and like living with fairies?
Well, there actually are ones that involve like a fantasy style. That's not my personal type of content. I liked this one because it kind of centered around sport. And I was like, well, I'm into that. So I'll read the ice hockey based one.
What about, you wrote down here fairy porn. What's that?
Yeah, that's something I thought it was new, but it turns out it's been around since the term has been around since 2021. Apparently there's a type of erotic literature where it centers around fairies.
This is like cosplay. This
Yes.
is cosplay porn.
I don't know at what point it turns into bestiality, but like I'm not into
Fairies aren't animals. They're humans with wings. Tiny humans.
I don't know when it becomes more about like the other creatures in the woods, but that's up to you. There's also a really good this came recommended to me a lot and I've started following her on Instagram and TikTok. Her name is Tierney Reads and there's heaps of people who do this kind of thing on Book Talk. So they review smut books and they'll put up like the stars of what they think of the actual book and then they'll also put up chilies to say how spicy it was. So I'm just dipping my toe in the low chili ones. But I'm sure that you can find something that kind of goes with your own interests as well because there's so many of them. And look, I actually have found it a really fun way to kind of get my sex drive. But I know that sounds like it's something that I feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about, being like, hey guys, my sex drive's been really low lately.
Yeah, but everyone's sex drive goes up and down.
Yeah.
If you were like, I only have a high sex drive, I'd be like, get out, Keisha. Boring. And I think also when you're in long-term relationships or you're living with your partner and you see them all the time and there's not the desire and the intensity anymore, like that's just I don't want to say it's normal and that it has to happen to everyone, but I think for a lot of us, that's a normal ebb and flow of a relationship.
And apparently it can be a really fun way for people to explore kink. So to kind of dip their toe in it without actually being the person who's dipping their toe in it, because you're kind of experiencing it secondhand through reading about it. And so a lot of people have found different things that they're into through reading the books.
The thing that's so cool about it, and the thing that I think most people, when they do get into this idea of, once again, as you call it, Keish, Cliterature, is because most of the time it's written for women.
Yes.
And most, I would say, most things that center around pleasure are for pleasure for men, right? Like most porn is made for men. Even porn that's made for women still often has a palatability towards men, whereas these books are very much written for women's pleasure. And the way in which they're written, the people who are consuming this are women.
Would you get into this type of,
Yeah.
do you want me to pass it on after I'm done?
Can you wipe it down first? Now, something that the entire world is talking about at the moment is Taylor Swift. And part of me hates that we're talking about it, not because I don't adore her, but because I am sure that there's people out there who have had enough. Because if you're not a Swiftie, you're probably sick of hearing about her, because every single person is talking about her at the moment. Every news outlet, every fucking podcast, every article or everything posted on Instagram, like everybody is talking about her.
I feel a little nervous talking about her because I really like Taylor.
But you're like, I'm going to get something wrong and they'll come for me.
There are people who know much more. And I don't want to speak from a position of power.
And we don't. We absolutely don't. We are not those people. Like, you guys know, I very much enjoy it. Had so much fun at the concert. She is incredible. Do I know the intricacies of her and her cat's names? No, I don't. But I still very much value it. And I also love the new album. Listen to it all the weekend. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, which I know they don't exist, but the new album came out, the Tortured Poets Department. It's what she teased on her recent Eras tour. And I think there's been so many people who have been waiting with bated breath for this to drop, which it did on Friday last week.
And then she had a double surprise and she ended up dropping 2 albums.
Why not when you're Taylor Swift, eh? Like, why not?
When does this woman sleep? Like,
Never.
Sorry, you've just been touring the world for however many years. How do you also have the time to record that much music?
I don't think that sleep is one of her hobbies like it is for you, Keish. Like, I don't think she has a sleep app. I reckon if she was going to actually document it, to be fair, actually I take that back. Taylor Swift is good at everything she does. She's probably even good at sleep.
Yeah, she'd have better sleep hygiene than me. She's devastating to me because it's something I really care about. Look, I did also listen to, I haven't made my whole way through it. There are people who are so in Taylor Swift's world that they were like, okay, I'm clearing my weekend plans and I want to sit down with headphones on from woe to go.
People had listening parties. I was on Instagram on Friday night and people were doing live listen parties where they were streaming their reactions to listening to the music. So they were
love that for them.
People were like crying and screaming, and the amount of energy that one must need to maintain to get through 2 albums with that sort of intensity, I didn't have that. But I appreciate that people out there are so invested in doing this. It's almost unfathomable the
grip she has.
Yeah, but for the length of time that she's had it and for how that kind of just maintains, like the fact that we've just done this Taylor Swift frenzy of the Eras tour and now she's managed to like bring it back up again and go for round 2. It's really quite remarkable.
What I find really remarkable is that she has such a unique way of making whatever she's experiencing in her music relatable for people. And I actually noticed that in this whole album. And I think most people were assuming that this was going to be a Joe Alwyn breakup album. They were together for like 6 years or something. And there are songs about him on the album, but I think most people were expecting more and they were expecting her to kind of go a little maybe harder on him.
Fucking take down.
Yeah. And
destroy him.
Like I said, I haven't heard every song, but from what I've heard and what I've read, it seems as though either they had a relatively non-nasty breakup or she's doing the classy route of like, I'm not going to shit on you too much in this album. Who she did shit on was Matty Healy. And I love that because it actually makes it more relatable for everybody. Because I think for a lot of people who are, especially those who are dating, there are so many songs about breakups and there are so many songs about breakups of these deep loves, these long-term relationships. But I don't feel as though there's as much written about the 2-month relationships. And when you're dating, you're often going through that emotional roller coaster so frequently, but you're not really given the validation perhaps of like, it's reasonable that you feel this upset, or it's reasonable that you have this much emotion about this situationship that's broken down.
Well, if anything, most of the time you're invalidated. It's not even, it's the opposite. It's like when, and especially if you're the person who is in that dating cycle and you have friends who are in long-term relationships, often when someone goes through like another relationship failure or another one that doesn't quite work out, even though it's been very short-lived and from the outset they weren't that invested in it, the person who's upset isn't even necessarily that upset about that relationship. They're upset about the fact that once again it didn't happen for them, or once again they're back into this like having to date cycle, I guess.
Totally. It's that yo-yo of excitement, disappointment, excitement. And I really like that Taylor included so much of this album centered around those emotions. And for her, it was with Matty Healy, and they're rumored to have dated for like 2 months, a month, 2, 3, who knows. For everyone who's experienced love, they're like, well, I can relate to at least some part of this. I thought it was very smart.
Well, the thing that we wanted to talk about, I mean, there's been a few Easter eggs, and the stories that have received like the most media attention are like the spat between her and Kim Kardashian and that having a little Easter egg, and then obviously the Matty Healy stuff. But one of the topics that came up off the weekend, and the thing that we wanted to have a discussion about, is one of the songs which is called The Black Dog. Now, this song is about Joe Alwyn, and it's about their relationship and more specifically around when they had gone through their breakup. And these are the lyrics. I am someone who until recent events you shared your secrets with and your location. You forgot to turn it off. And so I watch as you walk into some bar called The Black Dog and pierce new holes in my heart. You forgot to turn it off and it hits me. Which, can we just take a moment and all like kind of just like untangle ourselves from the Taylor Swift frenzy and everything else, because I know she can do no wrong. But at the same time, she's singing a song about how she still looks at her ex-boyfriend's location services because he still has Find My Friends on. She is, and I don't want to use a word that's loaded with a lot of negativity, but she's stalking his location. She knows where he is without him giving actual direct consent, because I would say that when you break up with someone, the consent that you have given for them to track your location is instantly removed.
Yes, I do think it's slightly softer than that though, because it's
Obviously.
not like she broke into his phone and loaded it up there without him knowing about it. He's just forgotten to turn it off. As she said, you forgot to turn it off. So, I mean,
he forgot to turn it off, but like, and I don't want to point barbs because I think a lot of us have been in this situation, but just because someone forgets to turn off their location services, you've been through a breakup, you had access to their location up until that point, there has to be a point of self-control where you go, I'm not supposed to see this anymore, so I'm going to unfollow this person's notifications as to where they are.
Yeah, but with, correct me if I'm wrong, with I'm assuming this is iPhone and like Find My Friends or whatever it is in the app. Apparently when you stop viewing someone's location or they stop sharing it with you, you get a notification. So it's kind of like
unfriending someone on Facebook.
But them getting a notification that you've done it is like a whole other step of, for me, it would feel a bit like a dagger of like, wow, that's everything in my life is changing. And that's a perfect symbol of what is changing in my life. We used to share everything. We used to share a home. We used to share where we were for safety. And now that too has ended. I feel as though it could be something that if you went through an amicable breakup, you might just delay doing that for a bit because you're like, I just don't want to rub the salt in the wound right now.
It's like the finality of it.
Yeah.
I understand that. I think, and like, don't get me wrong, this is not me getting on my high horse being like, this is so problematic. It's creating a culture. Like, I don't think it is. No. I don't think that this is going to have like long-term cultural impacts on people. But it does create a little bit of a gray area, I guess. Like if you said to me when you'd been through a breakup that you were still tracking your ex-boyfriend's location, I would as a friend say to you, Keisha, you're being crazy and you need to stop that because that is really unhealthy. And I don't care if you've been broken up for a week or you've been broken up for 2 months. You need to stop, and from your own level of self-preservation and also from a place of his privacy, you need to be the bigger person and unfollow that, regardless of whether he gets notified or not. So I think it's a very interesting call as someone who is such a huge public figure as what she is to admit that this is something that she's still doing, because it is such undesirable behavior that we would call out of any of our friends if they were doing it.
I completely agree. I remember times in my life, particularly when I dated toxic people, and I'm thinking of one in particular, and like I am not proud to admit, but I used to look at his social media like a hawk. Like as soon as we broke up, I would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I guess there's a difference in that because he has a choice as to what he posts. And I also think that he probably posted things to deliberately spite me. Like, you know, they post the Instagram stories out at the bars and like little insinuations that you're like, oh, okay, you're moving on.
Totally. But I think that that's very, very different for two reasons. One, because it's obviously curated. And two, because the time, you know, you don't need to post live. You don't need to post where you are, when you're there and what you're doing. People can choose to do that and they can choose to post live, or they can save those photos and post them the next day. Whereas like when you've got someone's location services on, you know where they are, you know what they're doing. I don't know, maybe like we're unpacking this in too much of a granular level, but at the same time, there would be people who just genuinely forgot that someone's able to see their whereabouts. And I think that creates a real, and it's not even I think that creates a real problem. I do think that once you're not in a relationship anymore, the implied consent around knowing where that person is at all times is instantly taken away. So whether they remove it from your phone or they don't, you should be removing it from your phone.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think.
Imagine writing a fucking song about that's inside thoughts. They are thoughts.
That's stuff that should not be shared with 300 million people.
Put that in your
day.
diary. I know that her songs are her verbal diary, but she needs a real one as well.
I think that there is a certain amount of like vulnerability to that I go, oh yeah, I can see why you felt like you wanted to just know what they were doing. And I'm talking about non-problematic relationships. Obviously, there is a very dark side to location tracking that I'm not referring to that right now. But how do you actually feel about location tracking in general? Because I do not have one person that knows where I am at all times.
Neither. I don't have it on my phone. It's an interesting one to me because I would say the only times where I've ever felt as though I wanted to have location tracking on a partner's phone was because I didn't trust them. So therefore my intentions behind having it wasn't pure. It was to keep tabs on them. Because the relationship was toxic, he often wasn't where he said he was going to be, and he lied a lot. So my version of reality was always being challenged because my intuition and everything about myself was saying, this is not true, he is lying, but he would be saying something to me point blank as though it was fact. And I think when you have that push and pull in yourself, you often try and reach for any sort of truth. And so location services can provide that. I'm specifically talking about one relationship. I really desired it. And I don't think I never brought it up with him, but I know he would have said no. I mean, that would have been a real problem for him to get away with doing the things he was doing.
Yeah, because there's objective evidence that he was lying to you.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it was not even an opportunity, nor would it have been something that he would have been willing to do because of how that relationship kind of unfolded. Whereas like in my relationship with Matt now, Matt would have no problem with doing it, but there's no part of me that feels as though I need to do it. I don't care to know where he is. I know some people do it as a safety thing. Maybe you're a shift worker. Maybe you live or you have to move through areas that feel like deeply unsafe to you. Maybe you get public transport in the nighttime, whatever that is. I can understand the safety element for it, but I don't feel as though in our relationship that safety element applies. I don't think we're ever in a situation where I would go, God, I need to know where Matt is right now to make sure that he's safe or vice versa. So therefore I kind of question, well, what is the purpose of having it? Why do I need to know where he is at all times? I can just text him and find out and he'll tell me. So it's non-critical in my relationship. But I do think it's really important for like parents having it for their kids. And I think that there is some level, it doesn't encroach in their privacy. It is genuinely something that some people are entitled to know. And I think with a parent dynamic that exists.
Wow, as a teenager, I am really glad that this technology
didn't exist.
wasn't around. Because
Totally.
I did some naughty things and I was definitely places that I lied about to my mum. And if you're listening to this, sorry, Mum, but it's true and I worked out fine.
You're like, Mum, you still don't know about it. No, but I think from a kid perspective, and I know that this is kind of taken off tangent a little bit, but I will do this with our girls when they're older. Like if you want a phone and I'm paying for your phone, then you can turn your location services on. And I don't think that it is a bit of an ultimatum when it comes to kind of like phone use. But at the same time, if you want the independence to be able to do those things and you want me to pay for you for that independence, then you can turn your location services on.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this in my own life, and I have a couple of friends who, most of them are single. So they have it on with a couple of their close friends. And I think that is mostly from a safety perspective because they're going on dates with new people quite frequently.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because I can see the logical nature of this. And I so trust my boyfriend that I don't know why I still feel as though if I was asked to share my location with someone, I just feel uncomfortable about it. And I still cannot think of the logical reason as to why that's the case because I don't do dodgy things.
Yeah.
I don't go places that I'm not supposed to be. But there's just a part of me that is like, well, maybe it could be used against you. Even though like no one in my life has given me a reason to feel that way. You know, this is actually a reflection of me, not of them.
No, but I think it's also a reflection of the world and being very aware that there are relationships that can turn toxic really quickly. I would say if you're in a new relationship and the person that you're dating asks you to share your location services with them and vice versa, I wouldn't say don't do it, but I would also say like look out for any other red flags because I sometimes think that these things we can look at that as flattery. We can go, oh, they really want to know where I am and they care so much about me and they're so invested in this relationship. And it's like opening up a joint bank account together. That can feel like a real relationship milestone, which it can be, and it can be an incredibly healthy, beautiful relationship milestone. It also can be the indication of a relationship moving faster than what it should because the relationship in essence will turn toxic or that person wants to have a level of control over someone. So obviously we've taken a tangent from Taylor Swift and I don't think that hers was this. I'm not saying that is a toxic thing, but what I'm saying is that I think that for some people, a tool that can be really useful and really healthy can also have a dark side to it as well, which I think most of us are aware of. But coming back to this conversation around like Taylor Swift literally singing a song about the fact that she still has access to where her ex-boyfriend's location is.
She probably doesn't now. He's probably realized.
I'm sure he's turned it off now. I guess part of me, and I know it sits in the grey because normally I would be the first person to say this is deeply problematic and we shouldn't be platforming this. And I think I can acknowledge my bias because I like her so much and I know that she as a person, or I shouldn't say I don't know her at all, but I assume she as a person is not problematic and therefore this is a reflection of being someone who's really heartbroken, not ready to sever every part of the breakup. And so they're still holding on to hope that maybe they'll get back together. And some of these actions feel really final, especially knowing that it sends a notification to that person. Like it feels like more of a severage, especially when you want the relationship to be back together.
It's the digital, I'm going to come over and collect my things so that I never have to see you again.
It feels so final. But I think there is something quite kind in the vulnerability around it. And I say that because I think as most women or most people going through breakups, we don't all behave perfectly. We all do things that maybe are on a side where if we were to see our friends do it, we would go, hey, you might need to rethink that behavior.
Also, when we like zoom out and you look at it from a historical point, like I look at some of the behavior I did in breakups 2 years ago and I'm like, that's fucked.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you're a danger. I'm not saying that you're deeply problematic, but I am saying that breakups cause us to do things that we are not proud of. And I do appreciate the visibility over her behavior because I think it makes people feel less stupid, I guess. But also I do think that maybe there is a bigger conversation around normalizing it. And does that then make people go, oh, it's okay if Taylor Swift did it? I don't know. I don't know where the line is.
If this song was a bit like, I tracked you so that I could follow you and I can like know exactly what you're up to. And if there was a more conclusion to what she did with the information, then it's problematic.
But really she just sat there and was sad.
She just cried. She was just sad because it's like indicative of the fact that he was moving on. And I think that is something that we've all personally felt. And like I look back on some of the things that I would witness of my exes moving on and it fucking breaks you. Like this would just feel as though this person is going out and doing things in their life and maybe you're not. Maybe you're still at home devastated by something and you're really shattered and you can feel as though you're the one who's like left behind in the moving on process.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess also it kind of like makes you realize how One thing that can be seen in isolation as very bad, which it is, when you look at it within a greater context of the discussion, you're like, yeah, okay, look, it's a shade of grey. Let's get into Accidentally Unfiltered. So these are your most embarrassing stories of the week. Thank you for sending them through. And if you haven't sent us one, if you have an embarrassing story that you've been like, you know what, I really should tell the girls, but then you keep forgetting to tell us, fucking send it in to Life Uncut Podcast on Instagram. And I'm going to go first. I cut my fingernails and toenails the other day and I put all the clippings into a plastic bag with the intention of throwing that plastic bag away.
The problem here is the word intention.
I had the intention of getting rid of it. Fast forward to the weekend and I went to the shops to exchange a shirt I got as a gift that was a size too small. I gave the bag to the lady at the desk with the shirt inside. She turned the bag upside down and tipped it out, and out fell the shirt, along with all of my fingernail and toenail clippings. I totally didn't register that the bag I used to take my shirt back was also the same one I had used a few days earlier to collect all of my clippings. I am mortified.
I feel sick.
What would you do also if you were that woman?
I feel sick.
If you were that woman who had the shirt returned, you would be like, this is used. I can't return this.
There is something so particularly gross about nails. And I don't know why. It's just keratin.
It's fine when it's on your body, but weird when it's on the floor.
It's fine when it's yours. It's not fine when it's a stranger's. Like, you know, if you were at the gym and you're on the mat, you know, the like flooring at the gym, and everything's fine and you're doing a burpee and you're real proud of yourself, and then you like look to the side and there's someone else's nail there.
It makes you do a different kind of burpee.
It's enough for me to like leave. There's just something so great. I feel so sorry for this woman who had to and also there were multiple. Like it's not like just one.
She's done her full fingernails and for 20. There's 20 of them.
I'd not be refunding you.
I don't think I could refund you.
You have to pay a tax for that.
I mean this as someone who works in retail. If I pulled out a wedding ring and it was covered in toenails, I'd say this is used. You're not returning this in the order in which I gave it to you in. No. I don't know. What do you do? Did you get a refund? I need to know. Did she just brush the toenail clippings off the counter? What did she do? Did you all pretend like it didn't happen? Did you just like stand there and ignore the
If she
clippings?
pretended like that didn't happen, she's a better woman than I am.
Would you say, I'm so sorry, my mum must have clipped her nails into a bag? This is humiliating. I hate my husband.
How disgusting
My husband's a pig. What an absolutely filthy pig. I'm going to go home and get divorced right now.
I have an Accidentally Unfiltered today that has actually come in from my friend Soph, who works at the radio here, and she's a Kiwi. She said, when I was back in New Zealand, I went and had a normal doctor's appointment. It was like a general checkup and, you know, all the female stuff. As we finished, I was sitting across from her. You know when when you finish and you're still sitting on the bed and they're punching all the data into the computer and you just
Don't you put your pants on and go and sit on the seat? You don't just sit on the bed.
I put my pants on and just sat back up on the bed table.
Okay.
No?
Nah, that's too intimate. I need to go back and I pull my pants on and I go and sit on the seat where I came in and sat down.
Okay, well, so she's sitting on this bed as the doctor's inputting the information, and she saw this bottle of clear liquid beside the bed. So she's like, oh, good, I'll give my hands a clean with a hand sanitizer. And she squirts it all over her hands, covers her hands, and she's rubbing them together. And she's like, this is a weird consistency.
Like, because obviously hand sanitizer, as soon as you start using it, it starts evaporating.
Yeah.
Like it starts drying out real quick.
Thin too.
Yeah, like alcohol-y.
So in her confusion, the doctor turned around and looked at her and was like, Sophie, that's lube. She said, now my hands are sticky, completely covered in lube as I sit there with my legs just hanging off of the bed.
There's something really grounding about the fact that your feet don't touch the floor either, like a fucking child. La la la. You start swinging them. It's fine. You're fine. You're okay. You can do weird things in front of doctors. They don't care.
That is true.
Like if you were ever going to be in safe company to do weird stuff, it's in front of a doctor.
I think she just felt stupid. Also because there's an element of like, you weren't instructed to do that.
Yeah, you did it.
You kind of took the liberty of, I'm just going to help myself to this.
To the lube.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll use that for later. Sorry. You walk out with your Cliterature book and your lubed up hands and you're like, sorry.
Take that home with me.
I'm ready.
I could actually use this.
Keisha's like, I am ready. I'll take this home right now.
Laura, well, I think that this would probably be her suck for the week, but do we want to get into suck and sweet, the highlight and low light of our weeks? What was your suck?
What was my suck? I know I knew this was coming and now I can't even remember. Oh, I had a mighty, mighty fight with Matt. That can be my suck. I had a real doozy of a fight. You know when you have those fights where afterwards it takes you a couple of hours, but you're like, I hate my husband. I actually hate him. That's the feeling in my body. I hope that this is relatable because like I get such fury after a bad fight where like we don't see eye to eye. The fury in me is so unreasonable that I'm like, I could get divorced. I hate him. I hate him. And
That is not true.
I know it is true. I know it subsides. I know that this is why we always say the way you feel is not real, not instantly anyway. Your reaction to something is not your real reaction.
What's your fight style too?
Well, actually, I just went quiet this time. I just couldn't be bothered. I think we tried to work it out. We were not seeing eye to eye. We're not yellers. Like, we don't yell. We just kind of throw a few barbs. We were trying to talk through it, but neither of us was seeing each other's point of view. And it was actually quite late. Whereas I know I said a few weeks ago that we never go to bed angry, but I was just like, we're not going to resolve this tonight. And I feel so angry. So I'm going to lay here and stare at the ceiling. And every 10 minutes, I'm going to just say one thing to you so you can't fucking sleep either. That was my fight style.
We were both suffering
So we would almost get back to sleep and I'd be like, it's interesting that you think that though, Matt, because you know how you said this?
Whenever it starts with it's interesting, it's not actually.
It's actually not interesting. So we could have just had a fight and made up and we would have both been to bed at a normal time. But because I, over the space of another hour, brought up 6 new points, but I made sure that I left a good amount of space in between just to be real fucking annoying because I can't sleep. If I'm angry, there's no way I cannot sleep angry. And I know I said this recently, but anyway, I had a lot of fury in my body and I was like, I guess this is the time where we get divorced. And then the next day we talked about it. We're fine. We love each other more than ever. Sometimes you just need to get sometimes you need to get it out and then you have great makeup sex and everything's wonderful again. In both mine and Matt's defense in terms of how we fight, we don't often say mean, like it's very rare for us to say mean things. We're not mean to each other. So like even though we're both really angry and I know he also is contemplating divorce, we would never, ever, ever, ever say those awful things, you know, because we know we love each other so much and we know it's not real.
Yeah.
You just like, you have these visceral reactions where you're so mad and then you're like, I just need to calm down because I actually love this person more than anything. So this is not real right now. They have just very much pissed me off.
I respect that because there's a lot of control in that because sometimes it's easiest to shoot from the hip.
Yeah, no, we don't. We really, really don't, which is good. So anyway.
So how long did it take you to recover?
The next afternoon because he left really early in the morning. So he was out of the house at like 5:30. So he came and gave me a hug and a kiss goodbye and it was like nice. He woke me up. Got one back there, didn't he? He gave me a hug and a kiss goodbye in the morning and he went to the airport, but then we didn't speak all day. So then when I came home that afternoon, we spoke about it straight away and we made up straight away. Stupid.
Well, no, I think this is real.
Healthy.
This is what actual relationships are like.
Anyway, we had a fight.
It's not always rainbow and sunshines.
It was about the thing that we often fight about now. It was about me working too much. So it's the running commentary of the fight. Anyway, said as I'm at work. So that was a fight. Anyway, that was my suck. It was shitty, but obviously like sometimes, and I do mean this, having a fight to then make up, I think it's a really healthy step in the right direction. And like sometimes you get to then say all the things that you've been holding on to that you needed to say and get out. And then you kind of feel like you're starting again from a clean slate, which fights can be really productive in getting to a place of great resolution in relationships. So that was probably being like now that we're fucking awesome off the back of it feels like a sweet as well. So that's my suck and my sweet.
Oh, I like
having
that.
a fight and then having the makeup. Yeah, that's my sweet. Is Matt and I are like really great now because we needed to have that fight. It had been brewing for too long.
I'm glad then.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sure he will listen to this and be like, why the fuck are you telling people this shit,
Just
Laura?
listen to his podcast and get his take.
Oh yeah, his take is like, I also wanted to divorce my wife. What is your suck?
My suck is that I was really humbled by our own people through the week. So I posted something in the Facebook group, the Life Uncut discussion group, and I kind of regret it now because I think I'm uncultured swine. So I posted something about really not enjoying this show that's number 1 on Netflix at the moment.
I disagree. I strongly disagree with your take on this as well, Keish.
Okay, so it's called Baby Reindeer. If you haven't seen it, I think it's like 8 or 9 episodes, something like that. And the episodes are pretty long. They're like over 45 minutes. And I got 4 episodes into this and I kind of just had this realization that I was like, I'm really not enjoying this. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm feeling all of these feelings inside of me and they're not good ones. And so why am I still watching this? Like I'm really I'm not having a good time. I just want to get out.
But sometimes you don't have to watch TV for a good time. Sometimes you watch it to feel even a negative emotion. At least it makes you feel something.
So this is where I think that I actually have learnt from this experience, because I probably jumped the gun by saying how much I disliked this TV show. I did know it was based off of a true story, but I didn't know it was based off of the main actor's true story. So a lot of people were like, it was really confronting and it was so brave of him to put this out into the world, because it shows some really dark sides of trauma.
Also shows some really dark sides of him as well. Like things that he probably wouldn't feel he feels ashamed of, whether that's like, you know, whether he should or he shouldn't. But I think that it doesn't show him in the best light at times either.
Yeah, and I have respect for that. But I think I've realized that I'm just really adverse to this type of content, I guess. You know, for me, this might be a little bit, it might make me seem a bit like a child. But up until last November, I'm actually medicated for this now, because I have really, really graphic and very real nightmares, and they're incredibly intrusive. And so I steered away from any type of content that's particularly distressing. I don't watch true crime. I especially don't watch anything like horror or scary or like anything that's particularly traumatic. For me, I'm like, oh, that's probably not best for me, because it might give my brain some ideas that I don't want it to have. And so I really feel a bit, I really object to this type of content for myself. I understand that other people really like it. But some of the comments in this thread were like, essentially, you might just be a bit too basic and maybe only rom-coms are for you. And for that, I think is fair. It's fair, but it's a suck. I'm uncultured swine.
Well, I agree, because I think it is brilliantly done. Like, I don't think that anyone's watching it and they're enjoying their time watching it, but I think it's really well documented. It's really well filmed, and it was going to be my recommendation for the week. So if you haven't seen Baby Reindeer, this is my recommendation. Go and see it, unless you're someone who has intrusive thoughts.
Unless you just don't like dark shit for 8 hours across your screen. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to Bridgerton, the new season coming out.
Okay, this is your suck and sweet. This is not your recommendations for the week.
So my sweet for the week is that over the weekend, my boyfriend and I celebrated our 1-year anniversary.
So cute. I also feel like things went so quickly for you. Like 1 year, you guys lived together. You finally said I love you, which took a while, but you got there.
That wasn't quick. That one took 9 months.
Do you now say it on the reg?
Oh, yeah.
So now it's a normal thing.
100%. Not a day goes by.
Oh, that's cute.
If a day went by, I'd feel like that was strange.
You'd be like, turn your location services on.
Where the fuck are you? No, we went for this really beautiful dinner, and it's been quite a while since I've had an anniversary with someone. Like, I've been in long-term relationships before, but not for a while. It's such a strange feeling to me, because I feel as though we've been together forever. And it feels quite grown up and like a mature relationship some of the time. Sometimes he still pisses me off so much.
Well, congratulations,
Thank
my
you.
love. You and little Toblerone. No, congrats, honey. Because, like, I mean, yeah, it's nice to be even able just to take the time to celebrate these things, like celebrate the 1 year anniversaries and the milestones, because at some point you'll be celebrating the fact that you made up after a fight.
That will be my sweet for the week.
Anyway, guys, that is it from us. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, all of these episodes are going up on YouTube now. So if you want to watch us in the flesh, not just listen to us in your ears, I think it's a very different dimension watching it on YouTube versus listening to it on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I also was not the type of person who ever watched YouTube podcasts before we had our channel. And so I've started watching a couple more now, because I want to get ideas how we can do it better and that kind of thing. And I've been watching Mark Manson's podcast on YouTube, and I actually do really enjoy it. I'm like, oh, I get why people are into this. It feels more personal. It feels like you're just hanging out with people.
And you're in a room having a chat.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we'll put all the links in the show notes. You can go and have a watch, have a listen. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, share it with your friends, and you know the drill.
Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love, because
we love love!